You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Rich Leonard, Dean at Campbell University School of Law, located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and former U.S. bankruptcy judge for the Eastern District of North Carolina. The dean is also an author of the memoir, From Welcome to Windhoek, A Judge's Journey. How are you, sir? Good to have you. Thanks for coming on.
I'm great, and I'm really honored to have a chance to talk with you, Benny.
Oh, that's really kind. Yeah, you have such a great story. I was looking up, about the book and about your background, and it's really interesting how you went from judge to dean of a law school. So I'm excited to talk to you today. So
yeah,
tell us, Dean, just as a general background. So where do we start? Tell us where you're from originally.
I'm from rural North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm the product of two big agrarian clans in Piedmont, North Carolina.
Wow.
My dad was the 13th of 15. My mother was the second of 4. I grew up amidst 19 sets of aunts and uncles, 40 first cousins.
Oh my goodness.
And no one before me had ever even thought about going to college.
Wow.
Most never even finished high school. So
do you keep in touch with all of your 40 cousins?
Oh yeah. No, I'm of my place. My family's lived on the same creek bank since 1748. So
wow, on the same.
I'm about as native and North Carolinian as you'll ever find. So no, I go home regularly and I'm in touch with my whole family.
Did you call it a creek mate?
Creek bank.
Creek bank. I like that. Okay. So that I feel like that's a story in itself.
Side of a creek.
Okay. Oh, creek bank. Okay. Very good. So that's great. You have all these that's like you could if you opened your own law firm, or you could be you could be representing all 40 of them. You'd have all these anyway.
Well, they think that sometimes.
Yeah. So that's great. That's really cool. Like you still, you keep in touch with 40 cousins. So from North Carolina, all from the same creek bank. And then, so we haven't shared your story yet on social media. We just came across it a couple weeks ago. We're going to do that soon. I reviewed your story. First of all, tell me, before I get into the other question, what was it like growing up where you were growing up?
It was a remarkable childhood. I always thought every kid grew up like I did. There were, all these sets of houses you could wander into anytime you wanted. You could eat a meal. You could spend the night.
Yeah, that's
they were all family. They all took care of you.
That's amazing.
It was a very safe, secure, and loving childhood.
It kind of feels like the way you feel family should be,
I wish every kid had it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's given me a sort of sense of security my whole life that I never lose.
That's interesting. So you said you were the only one to go on to college or on to law school?
I really was. I mean, we were an agrarian family. We were farmers. We just made our living off the land, and I was, of a different bent in some ways. I was an incessant reader as a child, and so I think that sort of showed me there was a world outside of Welcome where I could go someday, and I intended to do it.
Okay, so what did the rest of your family think when you decided to kind of move on? Because I want to go into you went to Yale Law School, and by the way,
I did. I actually ended up winning a big scholarship to Carolina.
Okay.
And that was really important in my life, and I did well at Carolina, and remarkably applied to Yale Law School, and it worked. Now I will tell you, Yale Law School is on my resume, but the story is a little more complicated than that. I only applied to Yale Law School. I was that naive, and I did that because I thought, even in those days, I really wanted a career in higher education, and Yale was rumored to have a pretty flexible law school curriculum that could train you to do a lot of things, and that's where I wanted to go. And I got on the wait list. And
Wow.
so instead of going to law school, I started a master's program in education.
Right. Right.
July 6th, I get a special delivery letter from Yale that I've been admitted off the wait list.
Wow. And so you were doing the other master program?
I was already in a master's program.
At Yale.
And I called the dean and I said, I've already started this master's program, and wouldn't you just let me go ahead and finish it and defer a year? And he very pointedly said, son, you're the last one in.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
If you don't come to New Haven this fall, you'll never see New Haven.
Where were you? You were doing
I was in Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill. Okay. I actually, by the way, lived in New Haven for like 4 years.
Did you?
Not for Yale though. I hung out with a lot of Yale people, but it wasn't for Yale.
Yeah.
I always looked and I was like, maybe I can get like a certificate.
It's an interesting city. It was a pretty rough city when I lived there.
It is. But it was a great place. I always looked around to see if there was some sort of certificate I could get from Yale, just to have that on the wall. But
that's great.
That never happened. But yeah, so congratulations. Tell us, what do you remember? What was your law school experience like at Yale?
It was here's the thing. Excuse me. Initially, it was overwhelming.
Right.
I was a pretty rural Southern kid, and I think I got in off the dirt road quota. That they had to take a couple of kids who grew up on dirt roads. And I'll tell you a story. I remember my first day there. I was asked a lovely lady who became an intimate friend, "What are you doing this weekend?" Mm-hmm. And she said, "I'm going to Paris."
Nice. Okay.
So for the weekend? And she said, "Oh yeah, my dad's on the board of Pan Am, and I have this pass, and I just go to the airport, and I can go anywhere in the world. There's a seat on the plane." So
wow.
I'm going to Paris.
So did you turn to her and say, "I was Paris, Connecticut? Where's that?"
Yeah, where? Yeah. So I did feel a little overwhelmed at first. But
did she take you with her though?
Time I realized that we were all compatriots in what we were doing. We were all really smart. We were all really thoughtful. We all cared about each other, and it became a really great experience.
Amazing. I think the young lady should have taken you with her to Paris personally.
Yeah. Well, I think her pass was only good for one person.
All right. Do you remember a movie called The Paper Chase?
Oh my God, yeah.
So that's like one of my favorite law movies. I know there's a lot of law movies out there, but
no, it's pretty real too.
It is. Was Yale like that too?
I have to tell you, I hadn't thought about my contracts professor for years until I came back to the law school and was back in this tradition. And then she just started appearing in my dreams again.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
I think she was this fearsome woman named Ellen Peters. She was the only woman on the Yale faculty, so she's tough as could be.
Right.
She later became the Chief Justice of Connecticut, but her opening overture, when she would stand you up like in The Paper Chase, she would say, "Come for a walk with me down my garden path." Really? It's like, no, I don't want to go there.
And then what would the next thing be? Like, give me
some question you could not answer.
Oh my gosh. That was like my biggest feat. Like, I didn't like that at all in law school. That was my worst thing, I think, about being a law. But that it makes
cold call is still real.
It is real. So, I want to ask you, how do you think that, we're going to talk about before you became a dean of the law school, but since we're sort of in the law school days, like, how do you feel that law school has changed since you were a student at Yale? I mean, there's probably so many ways, but.
Well, it's changed in a lot of ways, but some hasn't. I mean, and some law schools are different. We're still heavily Socratic.
Oh, really?
In
Okay.
our first year, I mean, we still, like The Paper Chase, stand kids up and interrogate them and terrify them. And we don't do it because we're mean people. We just feel like you know, if you're going to go into court representing people with their lives in your hands, you got to have some backbone and some hubris and some confidence to do it. And this is how we build the confidence. So,
You know what I like about that, Rich? You know what I like about that answer is, Dean Leonard. You know
no,
what I like
Rich is fine.
Rich, you know what I like about that is that you were straight to the point about it. You didn't like try to dance around and say, "Oh,
No, we don't.
sort of
No,
do
we're a
this
pretty
sometime."
traditional old style law school, and our graduates are hugely successful, I think, because of that.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
there are law schools that have played to the populace and they've gone to a very softer way of teaching and they've gone to a more elective curriculum. We just haven't. I mean,
That's amazing. I think
we
that's
still say, you know, 60 of the 90 hours you need to graduate. We tell you what you have to take because we think this is what you have to know to be a well-rounded lawyer. We
okay.
still teach in an old style way, and our graduates are really pretty successful, I think, coming out of that.
Do you still make people go to? So I think my class when I graduated was like the last class to have to go do legal research in the books, which I call the stacks, which I liked. I thought it was like deeply traditional to go into the stacks late at
We
night.
still have a course or two where we teach people how to do that because I guess we all feel like if the internet goes down someday,
Yeah.
you need to be able to get to
I mean,
it.
you're out there checking the mail for like the inserts and stuff now.
Yeah, but no, we still have a pretty, pretty big law library that
Yeah.
does all that. But like you say, it's all at your fingertips electronically now. So
Yeah.
it's hard to really go to the books.
All right. So you go to Yale,
I do.
and then you got this amazing clerkship. You're a
I
law
did.
clerk for the Honorable Franklin T. Dupri.
Yeah, he was the big guy in North Carolina at the time. He was the premier federal district judge.
What was he do? Like, what was his cases? Civil and that sort of
Civil,
thing?
criminal, whatever.
So what were you? Tell
He
us about
tried
that
huge
experience.
criminal cases, huge civil cases, whatever came down the pike.
Okay, so tell us about that experience.
It really did. So here's the thing: when I really didn't think that would be my career. I still hoped for a career in higher education, but coming back to North Carolina from Yale when I graduated, it was a pretty parochial place. And there
Okay.
weren't a lot of job offers. No law firms weren't like they are now, like dying to have Yale lawyers join them.
And when you say parochial, you're talking about sort of like an insular type of
Insular legal
Okay.
community here,
Yeah.
really incredibly insular. So,
They were probably intimidated of you. You come
well,
back.
coming home clerking was the way home.
Okay.
So I thought I'd do it for a while to get back, and then I'd find what I wanted to do. And I will tell you, I walked into his courtroom the first day as his law clerk, and I was smitten.
Really? What was
Smitten. I thought this is the most intellectually challenging, invigorating, honest look at the world I've ever been a part of. And the lawyers were brilliant. He was brilliant. There was nothing happening there but to get at the right answer. And I thought, if I can do this, maybe I want to do this for a while.
So tell me more about that. Like, what do you mean when you say like the lawyers were bringing it? I love that.
Well, the lawyers were, well, I mean, I will tell you, I walked into his courtroom, and I don't want to divert too much, but it was a very famous first Title VII case called Moody v. Albemarle Paper Company that had been sent back to him on remand. And I was listening to motion hearings. And on one side were all the folks who work for the paper company in their nice white uniforms, all African American. And on the other side were all the executives of the paper company, similarly attired in navy suits, all white.
Okay. Wow.
And I listened to the arguments, and it was just brilliant. Coming to the genesis of what this case was about and how the trial would go. And anyway, I walked out of there and thought, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Wow. That's a great feeling, right? So what was your day-to-day like with him?
We were in court a lot. We were in court all the time. And my job as a law clerk, you're really doing two things. You're looking forward, you're looking back. You're writing bench memos about the cases coming up, and you're writing draft opinions about the cases he's already heard.
Okay.
So you're working long, long hours.
Wow. Wow.
A lot of Saturdays and Sundays, a lot of nights, but we didn't care because we were just so engrossed in the process.
It's amazing. Like maybe this is just me, but like, how do you know you've captured it all? Like, what if there was like you missed like a case, like a precedent, or like something that was on point, or something that should have been on point? Like I've always kind of wondered that, because you're really making this like critical decision and then suggesting these things to the judge, right? So,
well, you got it as right as you could, but what you had was the safety valve of him.
Okay.
I mean, I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
The first draft opinion I ever gave him was like 10 pages long, and it was really good.
Yeah.
And he kept my first paragraph and my last paragraph. He marked out the intervening 8 pages, and he wrote at the top, "This is apparently your first case. It is not mine."
So that means he just kind of wanted like the issue and the conclusion.
He's a trial judge. He just wanted to tell me the facts, give me the answer.
Right.
The Court of Appeals will sort it out.
Just incidentally, like, what do you love so much about the law and trial work and research, and like, what is it? You just strike me as a very traditional, like, attorney, like sort of, and I love that. Like, I loved being in the stacks, like late at night at the law library. And
well, I think it's the purest process in America.
Okay.
I mean, I watched even you look at all the issues around the last election where like 42 judges looked at the facts and said, well, this is all crap.
Okay.
There's no real evidence here for any of this.
Right.
And I think that's the crucible we worked in. I mean, you just locked it down and you looked at absolutely the admissible evidence, and you came to a conclusion about what the right answer had to be. And I do think it remains the genesis of our republic, that judges can do that.
Wow. Okay. So when you were on the bench, like, we're going to talk about that, but what did you look for in a law clerk?
Sorry, I'm choking. I'd have 400 or 500 applications for every position, so you got a lot of choices. I look for a couple of things. I look for writing ability, because if they can't write for you, that's a serious problem. But I always look for a spark. These were, the way the federal system is designed is that these law clerks are really your only companions, your only advisors, the only people you're allowed to talk to about anything. Occasionally a fellow judge, but I was usually in a courthouse where I was the only judge, so that didn't happen. So I was looking for, people who had some human interests, had some hobbies, had sometimes some quirks.
Gotcha. Okay.
That would make them fun to be with and travel with and, eat meals with, in addition to being, really smart at the top of the edge.
That's great. So how did you become a bankruptcy judge?
Well, it's funny. The bankruptcy judges in this country are picked according to a pretty serious merit selection process.
Okay.
And I've competed for other judgeships. I got nominated by President Clinton a couple of times.
Wow.
But I didn't get them because I had Republican senators who didn't love me. But the bankruptcy process was pretty pure. I mean, it's a merit selection panel, and it goes to the Court of Appeals for your region, like the Fourth Circuit in my case. And they have to take from the top candidates the merit panel puts forward, and you just make your case.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I had a pretty strong academic record. I'd already been a magistrate judge for 11 years. So people were pretty comfortable with me in the courtroom. And and that's how it worked out.
So why bankruptcy? Like what was the draw to that?
Well, here's the reality. I wanted to stay in the federal courts. I didn't want to leave Eastern North Carolina because that's home. There just aren't a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small court. So when a vacancy comes up, you can't be too choosy.
Yeah, sure.
And this was the vacancy that came up.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. All right.
There you go.
So tell us about your career a little bit in the federal courts.
Well, I clerked for the judge you asked me about. I went into went out to practice with Senator Sanford's law firm, and I was perfectly happy there. And a few years later, he became the chief judge. And he called me and he said, you know, I'm going to fire the clerk of court the first day because he's incompetent. And when you were a law clerk, you're always messing around and stuff that was none of your business, and you're always trying to reorganize the place.
Yeah.
Why don't you come over here and be my clerk of court for 2 or 3 years?
Wow.
And then I'll put you in whatever firm you want, but you come over here and straighten this place out for me. I was 29 years old.
All
And
right.
they're handing me the federal courts to run.
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun. And I thought I'd only do it for a couple of years. But then what happened was that was when the Federal Magistrate Act passed. And it created magistrate judges as really serious federal judges in a subordinate way. And there was a little provision that said that if your clerk of court was otherwise qualified, you could make what was called a combination appointment. And he could be both the clerk, but he could also be a magistrate judge. So that's what I did.
Wow.
The fifth, you got to be 5 years at the bar to be a federal magistrate judge.
Okay.
On the 5th anniversary of my bar membership, when I was 31, I became a federal judge.
Wow. That's amazing. Were you like the youngest one? That's amazing.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. And it was pretty exhilarating. So, you know, that's what I did. And then a chance to move up to the bankruptcy court came, and I grabbed it.
Yeah, for sure. So what were some of the important initiatives you were involved with in the federal courts, like nationally? I think there were.
I was pretty involved. I was had my elbows into, in the mid 1990s, the transition of the federal courts from a paper to an electronic case management system and all that entailed. I was one of the designers and sponsors of the electronic case management system. So I was spending about as much time in Washington as I was in Raleigh trying to make all this come together. So
you were a proponent for that.
I was a huge proponent, and I had a hand in the design. Pacer, which is the big access system to the federal courts. I had a big hand in designing that. So I'm really proud of the role I played in that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, everything just going from having these stacks of paper to going inside a system and
change the world.
So what do you think about just while we're on that like kind of electronic digital topic? What do you think about like AI?
I think we're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. It's with us. I'm using it. We're trying to control it, make sense of it, integrate it into our curriculum, but it's a brave new world.
So that's really interesting about Pacer. I like that. It sounds like, you know, that's people going from just having these enormous stacks to.
I mean, honestly, Benny, I remember sitting in a room in the early 90s and around a table and saying, you know, if we let people dial into our computers with a modem, which is what we used in those days.
Right.
And we told them for $1 a minute, they could pull down anything they wanted. Would anybody come?
Right. Yeah.
And the response was just overwhelming.
Yeah. Oh, I remember modems. Are you kidding me?
And then we moved forward with every iteration of that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good for you. You were like ahead of the curve there, Judge.
We were ahead of the curve.
So is there something about this is just something I thought about while going through some notes today. Is there something about the bankruptcy process that people would be surprised to know? Because I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really powerful process, but I think the thing people need to know is, because it gets a bad name sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that the people in front of me over 20 years, which is how long I was there, they were in the last place they ever wanted to be.
Yeah.
And the last place they ever expected to be. And they tried everything to avoid that.
Right.
And it is a powerful remedy in our society to give people who are honest and try hard another start. I mean, you could look at a family and just know what took them there. I mean, it was a job loss. It was a domestic split. And I can't tell you how many sick children who were uninsured sent families into bankruptcy. A kid with leukemia, if you have no health insurance, will bankrupt your family in 30 days. Over and over again, I saw that. So I guess my message would be, yeah, there's some people who con the system, but we had weapons to find them and kick them out. By and large, the people in front of me were just good people who had done everything they could, and it just hadn't worked out.
Right. Now, have you ever had, this is sort of off topic. We're going to switch topics here, but I just have a question with your judge cap on, which I don't know, maybe you wear it all the time, but did you ever have an attorney come before you that was like so nervous? Like just like representing a client, like a new person, or like
all the time.
Do you have any stories about that, or like somebody who just
I'll tell you a story.
Love it.
So, and I use this with my students who are so nervous about going into trial advocacy.
Right.
So you'll never make an opening statement as bad as this young lawyer did. First time he'd ever appeared in front of me, packed courtroom, stood up to make an argument, and all of a sudden looked at me, and there was this flash of recognition. I didn't recognize him. And he said, "Excuse me, Your Honor, I didn't recognize you with clothes on."
Wait, what?
And I said, "Put on the record what you mean by that statement right now."
Yeah.
And he said, "I've never seen you any place but the Y locker room."
And was that his whole opening statement?
Yeah, and it didn't go well. Because
funny.
he had a courtroom just doubled over guffawing.
Oh my goodness.
Laughing out of control. And he, stumbled through about 10 minutes and walked out, and I never saw him again.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, so they
you really intimidated him, Judge. That's crazy. That's funny. Okay. I wanted to follow up with something about all right. So tell us, okay, so that's interesting. I oftentimes think if like people are like very nervous, like getting in front of the judge, like either if it's the first time or whatnot. So tell us about like your pivot into becoming a law school dean.
Okay. So I thought I loved my job as a judge. I had just spent 3 years and $12 million renovating the old federal courthouse on Fayetteville Street here in Raleigh, which was the first federal courthouse in North Carolina, had the most elegant chambers in America.
Wow.
And that's where I was going to spend my life.
Okay.
And this elegant lady from Alabama cold called on me in my chambers and said, "Had I ever thought about being a law school dean?" And
really?
I said, "Honestly, ma'am, look around. I work in a movie set. I'm going out of here on a plane." No. But she wouldn't let up. She came back 2 or 3 more times. And the story she told me was my current law school had been 2 years in a search for a dean, and faculty's having trouble finding anybody that they could agree on. And my name kept coming up as a possible compromise candidate that everybody could get behind. And would I think about it again? And, I did. I thought, you go around once, and I've done this job for a couple of decades, and I always thought early on I might have a career in higher education.
Right.
This is probably my last opportunity to grab one. So I told them, I'll write the letter, I'll come do the job talk. And 8 weeks later, I was the dean.
Wow. And that was how close to like where you were working? Was that pretty close?
Like 3 blocks away.
Yeah. Well,
didn't really change the structure of my life much.
That's pretty amazing. So let's give a shout out to Chapman Law and like tell us what you like about it so much. Obviously besides being in North Carolina and 3 blocks from where you worked.
About my law, Campbell, you mean my law school?
What's that?
You said a shout out to my law school?
Well, Chapman Law.
I'm not Chapman, I'm Campbell.
Campbell, sorry, I wrote it wrong.
I know Chapman, they're a good school.
What's that?
I said, I know Chapman.
All right, I wrote that down wrong.
No, we're
Campbell University School of Law. Let's tell us why you like it so much.
I like it because we are becoming the dominant law school in my state.
Okay.
We are a school of opportunity for a lot of first generation kids. We give an incredibly solid legal education to the kids who come here. and they go out into this state and they change it. We produce the most judges, the most
Wow.
prosecutors, the most public defenders, and we pride ourselves on not just producing technically good lawyers, but on producing lawyers with a moral compass.
So
Lawyers who really believe in our legal system, understand right and wrong, understand ethical decisions that lawyers face, and we think we teach them to make the right ones. And God knows in these partisan times,
yeah,
those people are really needed.
yeah, no, for sure. So do you see it? You're gonna obviously continue being there. Do you think being a judge has helped being a dean, maybe with like your connections and helping
Yeah,
students
I think
get
that's a
points?
great question. I think, I think it is, it's been, I actually wrote an article about the judicial dean and the strengths
Yeah.
and weaknesses of coming from a judgeship to a deanship. I think the strengths are the more outweigh the deficiencies. I think one of the things about coming as a judge, particularly a trial judge, is you're just used to making decisions on less than perfect facts. So people bring you an issue at the law school, and instead of just dithering about it in endless meetings, my question would always be, what do I need to know that I don't know?
Mm,
If I know the whole record, then I can tell you what we're going to do.
yeah.
And I think that's been really important to moving law school along. I think in COVID, it was critical. I think my ability to just cut through the nonsense and the hyperbole and say, we're doing X,
Yeah.
get with me, that's what we're doing. And we were very successful in that.
What did you do over COVID?
We stayed, we never went completely remote.
Okay.
We absolutely fought. We rented space outside the law school to teach classes 6 feet apart.
Okay.
We obviously had to have a hybrid alternative for kids who could not come.
Right.
But we never went completely remote. We taught every class in seat throughout the entire pandemic, and I'm really proud that we were able to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what would you say, like, and this is me not knowing so much, but like, what would you say about like your biggest role is at the school? Is it more academic support? Is it just to like overlook the professors? Is it to like,
Well, it's a lot of things. Every law school in the country now, the deans are pretty external because you have to go find resources to help build the programs that you want to build. So I'm out a lot looking
Okay.
for supporters, but I'm also really involved in the running of the place. I mean,
Okay.
it's funny because you can't see it, but over there on my last year, the Chamber of Commerce gave me like the CEO of the year.
Wow. Wow.
And I took my wife to the thing and she says, "This is ridiculous. Like, why are we here?
Really? Why? Why
What is this about?" And I said, "It's apparently escaped you that I'm running a $26 million business on a daily basis."
Wow, that's amazing.
And that's a lot of what a dean does today.
Yeah, yeah. What if a law student who had graduated and said to you, or a new lawyer, and maybe like they felt that they could have done better in law school, and they come back and they say, "Excuse me, Dean Leonard, I would like to come survey your trial advocacy class because I feel like I was, too much of a wimp and didn't take it when I was at law school, and I kind of want to come in there now that I'm like a little more experienced." And like, what would you say to them without being?
Well, that hasn't happened.
What? It hasn't happened.
Once
I
they
don't know, I think
leave here,
that's-
they're ready to be gone. What I'd say to them is, of course, you can do that if you want, but the reality is,
Yeah,
when you get that bar license,
yeah,
nobody is ever going to ask you how you did in law school.
yeah. That's true. That's
That question will never come to you.
well,
They're
yeah,
never going to say, "What was your class rank?
right.
How did you do in contracts? What was your grade in property?"
Yeah, that's true.
You are a lawyer, and they're coming to you for your help and your advice.
How are you guys for grading? I know you said you do stand by the Socratic method, and
We're tough. I mean, we're all, we're numerical, class rank.
Okay.
We exclude, I mean, not too many, but we exclude kids every year who can't make the cut academically.
How many would you say out of how big is each class there?
Each class about 180.
Okay.
I'd exclude 5 to 7 probably
Okay. Yeah,
who don't make it academically.
they go below.
But I think, we think our rules are fair, and we feel like, and we try to make it happen early, because we feel like we don't want you to borrow more money for a fruitless endeavor and go
Yes.
hopelessly in debt.
Right.
If you can't make our pretty generous exclusion criteria, you're probably never going to pass the bar exam. So you just need to refocus and find something else to do now.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Wow. That's all right. That's good. So let's switch gears.
Okay.
Tell us about how did you get involved in Africa, and like what did you do there?
My God, I'm in the bankruptcy court. I'm sitting in my office in 1994 to break in a big trial. I get my phone rings, and it's somebody from the State Department, and they say, "Would you like to go to Zambia as a consultant?" And I said, "Hell yeah! Where's Zambia?"
Where you said where? Yeah. Okay. So you said where's Zambia? Where's
Zambia?
Okay.
All
right, so I don't feel so bad now about looking it up earlier today.
Yeah, I had no idea. And he explained to me that the Zambians had just passed they're a fairly new republic. They passed a new constitution that set up a new judicial structure, and they'd asked our ambassador to send some American judges as advisors. And I said, "Well, why me?" And he said, "Well, they really do want some judges with administrative experience. They're not interested in lectures on rule of law or separation of powers." Mm-hmm. Most of them have LLMs from Oxford or Cambridge. They know all that. Wow. They just don't have any systems.
Okay.
And your name keeps coming up because before you were a judge, you were a court administrator. So you know how to run courts.
Wow.
And I went home that night. I came back and I said, "Listen, you really have the wrong guy. I'm a tall, blonde, white Southerner with a considerable accent. Zambia is 100% Black African nation.
Yeah.
There's got to be somebody more effective than me." And they said, "No, we think you're it." So I did some transatlantic phone calls, and 8 weeks later, I was in Lusaka.
Wow.
And
seems like 8 weeks is the period for you to get convinced to do something. So like
8 weeks later,
8 weeks later, you were a dean. 8 weeks later, you're in Africa. All right.
I'm in Africa.
There you go.
And it was magic, because I did know things that were really helpful to them. They just were desperate for systems, for how to track cases, how to calendar cases, how to know which judge had what. And I was really good at helping them figure out rudimentary systems on how to do that.
Interesting.
And I would try to break it down into small increments, like, okay, we're going to work on a calendaring system, or we're going to work on a tickle system, so every judge knows where his or her cases are at any time. And so I went back to Zambia over and over again for about 6 years. I'd use all my discretionary time, 3 and 4 times a year. I would head back over there, and then we sort of got to an end point in Zambia, and I thought I was done. And then the Chief Justice of Zambia brags to the Chief Justice of Tanzania about how much progress he's making. And next thing you know, the invitations start coming to go to Tanzania.
Wow.
And so for the next 5 or 6 years, I go to Tanzania for 3 or 4 times a year.
Wow.
Meet with their folks and do the same sorts of things.
You're like a diplomat too, like an American.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then in 2002, the Chief Justice of Tanzania, who I adored, was so proud of what we'd done that he convened a conference of all the sub-Saharan Chief Justices to come to Dar es Salaam for me to lay out sort of our progress in revising his whole case management system. And after that, I could go anywhere.
Did you tell them about Pacer and your work with Pacer and how you
all that stuff just fed right into it.
Yeah.
I was doing them simultaneously.
Yeah, okay.
I was in Washington, and then I'm in Lusaka, and then I'm in Raleigh trying cases, and then I'm back in Raleigh, and then I'm in Dar es Salaam, and it was a crazy life, but it was exhilarating.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, so then I pivoted to Namibia, which is the Windhoek in my title. And I went 4 or 5 years. I was in Windhoek 2 or 3 times a year working with their court.
Yeah,
so it was, it was great.
How has the experience in Africa like changed your perspective on things?
Oh, I'm just, I just think being I mean, I don't want to brag about it, but I think you just become a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
Just realize, that all the ways in which people and societies are organized, but at the end of the day, they're all just really struggling to put it together in the best way they can. So,
yeah.
And I think, I mean, one of the things I do now at my law school is we may be the only law school that has a summer program in sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh, cool.
But I take a group of my students to Ghana every summer for 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
And it just changes their lives. They have no idea that the world is even like that.
So what do you guys do there? Like
I mean, it's a 3-credit study abroad, but we spend the first week really looking at the political and legal institutions of Ghana. We go sit in their high court, we go sit in their Supreme Court, we go to their parliament, we meet with their judges and justices to try to understand their system. The second week, we go down to Cape Coast and we do a deep dive into the international slave trade, because that's where it was mounted from by the British, and all the old castles and forts are still there.
Wow.
So we spend a lot of time in the horror of that. And then we come back to Ghana with a more optimistic look for the third week, which is sort of Ghana and Africa as a player in the world economy. And what role are they playing, and where are they going to go, and what are their prospects and what are their limitations, looking at the fact that by 2040, Africa will be the largest continent on Earth in terms of population. It will pass Asia.
Wow. That sounds like an incredible experience. Have you made like really good friends and everything there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The judges, the deans, they're all my buddies.
That's amazing. I'd love to see photos at some point if that's available.
What's this?
I'd love to see photos or something if those.
We got plenty. I'll send you some.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, but it's been a remarkable experience, and I'll tell you, if you want an anecdote, I took this summer, I took a group, they were about half students of color, half white students. And we go into the High Court of Ghana, and I just watch my students of color puff up.
Wow.
Because for the first time in their lives, this is how the world ought to be.
Yeah.
Everyone with authority and power looks like them.
Yeah,
and my white students get very uncomfortable.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They've never been in a place like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they just feel very uncomfortable. And the conversations those kids have when we get back to the hotel are just remarkable.
I bet.
I mean, they're just remarkable. They're life-changing.
Yeah, I bet. That's really, really interesting. I mean, you wrote a book. I mean, you have a memoir.
I did.
Memoir, sorry.
Yeah.
From Welcome, which is where you're from, the town.
From to Windhoek, which is, like we said, the last big city in Namibia I went to. I did, I'd come home and tell these stories, and my friends would say, you ought to write these down.
Yeah, and that's
fascinating, and you really ought to put them on paper. So I did. And and they are fun, and it's sold a lot of copies, and people have really enjoyed it. I had the fun of narrating it on Audible myself. So
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's up on Audible now. So
good for you. All right.
You can pull it right down in my voice.
So tell us, I know you just said there's like a lot of like different stories, but just if we were going to ask you, like, tell us, in a couple sentences, like what the book is about, from Welcome to Windhoek, A Judge's Journey.
The book is about half all the work I did in Africa and all those countries and all the stories that came out of that. It's about half my life here that sort of made it possible to do that. And at first I just started writing about Africa, and then I'd think, well, how did I know to do that?
Yeah.
How did I think I had some expertise in that area? So I'd flash back to my life. And what experiences I had as a judge and a lawyer in this country that sort of showed me that I maybe had something to say about those issues.
Yeah, is there like a certain piece of the book that you want to share, or something like just to, you know, you don't have to. I mean, I'd love an
No,
autograph.
I can share. I mean, it's there, but the you want to read? You want me to read you something, or you want me to just tell you about something?
Yeah, just tell us about it.
Yeah. So when I got to Tanzania, it's one of my favorite stories. The Chief Justice there was really fascinated with automation.
Okay.
And he had gotten the World Bank to convince the Germans to give him a room full of computers. And their programmers had come to design his case management system, but they knew nothing about Tanzanian courts. Tanzanian judges had no idea what they were talking about. So the system was garbage, and we started trying to fix it.
Okay.
But we developed this scheduling program that was pretty robust, very simple about what all his high court judges were doing. And he invited them all into his chambers, and I showed them their schedules. And the first one was the only woman on the high court. And it was ridiculous. I mean, she just trials and hearings, morning, afternoon,
Wow.
unrelenting, a docket no judge could do. And then we went to the senior man on the high court. And all of a sudden, I thought the computer malfunctioned because just a column appeared down the middle of the page. And all of a sudden, we all realized simultaneously, he only went to court on Wednesday.
So
And he'd
that's,
been doing it for years,
wow.
and nobody knew it.
That's crazy.
It was the most amazing insight to the power of automation I think anybody'd ever seen.
Wow. All right. That's
So I remember the Chief Justice Neil Lawley just was stunned, and he said, "I see now why my lady is so fatigued. She will be fatigued no longer."
That's so funny. All right. So that's, how do I get an autographed copy?
I'll send you one.
All right. That'd be great. I'd love an
Just
autograph.
email me. You got my email. Tell me where to mail it to you.
I will, for sure.
I'll get it to you, Benny. I'd
So
love to.
thank you. What job do you prefer? Like being a federal judge or a law school dean? I mean, they seem both like amazing career paths.
I'm not a look backer. People always
Okay.
ask me that. And I said, I always find that the job in front of me right now is so big and vast and challenging that I don't really have time to think about if I miss the old one.
Okay.
I'm honored to have had them.
Yeah. I feel like
I'm honored.
everything you've done.
Who gets these choices in their life?
Well, I mean, everything that you've done sort of got you to where you are now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
no, I don't. I love being a judge, but I love being a dean, and the days are full.
yeah. So we talked about how law school might have changed from now and then for your days at Yale. How about the profession? Do you think the profession's changed from now, like what you're preparing your students to go into at Campbell, rather than what it was like? Do you think it's changed a little bit?
I think so. It's beginning to change. It's everybody's more remote.
Yeah.
People aren't doing as much face to face. There's actually not as much court in a lot of places as there used to be.
Right.
So I think we have to work really hard to create those sort of empathetic personal skills that lawyers have always relied on. But yeah, I think it's changing.
It's changing, yeah. So what's your opinion? I'm curious about like social media. I mean, obviously this podcast is going to be broadcast. We have a YouTube channel. It's going to be on Spotify, on
it's
Apple.
it's a mixed blessing. It's hugely valuable. I mean,
Right.
for a pretty insular law school like mine to get a national presence, we
Yeah.
couldn't do it if we weren't out on social media all the time,
Right.
telling ourselves, showing what we do, showing our successes, showing our products. That's how we recruit students. And that's how we celebrate our successes. But it can also bite you. You can
Yeah.
end up with exaggerated responses to things that you do. I mean, the
Right.
average law dean right now, I'm in my 12th year. The
Yep.
average law dean right now serves 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because
Why do you
these
think that
jobs are
is?
hard.
Why do you think that
And-
is?
Well, I think in these polarized times, you can make one wrong statement and it'll
Oh, yeah.
explode. I
Okay.
mean, you have to be really careful, particularly on social media. You know, I look very carefully at everything I post, everything I
Sure.
say. Like, is there any way this could be misconstrued or
Right.
misinterpreted or taken in a way that I didn't intend?
Yeah. Smart.
But Deans get in trouble all the time with those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's firms out there just advertise all the time. They're on there all the time, showing what they're doing, their verdicts or recoveries, like just sort of advertising and that sort of thing.
I mean, I'll give you an example. This is how crazy it is. So we take a lot of photographs. We have a lot of events. And last year, somebody posted on Facebook front of a big photo of an event at the law school. Have you ever noticed that when women are in a picture with Dean Leonard, he makes them kneel in front of him?
Who would write that?
They did.
What? This was a law student?
No, it was somebody not in the community. It wasn't a law student, but still, it's right out there.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I mean, isn't that the way we've taken pictures for 1,000 years? I mean, the shorter people.
Yeah, that's no good. That's no good.
But that's the sort of thing you end up with.
Yeah, no, I understand. So Rich, give us some advice for young lawyers.
What I would tell them is that the basic rules have not changed.
Yep.
You got to be as ethical and straightforward and honest in your dealings with folks as you can possibly be. You cannot take shortcuts. You cannot take the easy path. You got to work hard. You got to be entrepreneurial about when opportunities come your way, about seizing them. But it all does come down, I think, still to character and ethics at the end of the day. I mean, I think the reason that I have gotten the opportunities that I've had, because I've always tried to do that. I've always tried to treat people as fairly and compassionately as I know how. And so when I was in competition for big jobs, that's what people would recall. That's what people would say about me. I tell my students that all the time. I say, look around, because as your career progresses and you want to move up, these are the people they're going to come to and ask their opinion of you.
Yeah, totally. That's good advice.
Start right now building your record.
Yeah, that's good. So we asked about young lawyers. How about law students, being the dean? What advice do you have for law students?
Really not much different from a young lawyers from the very beginning. I mean, I sit with them, talk with them, encourage them, but it is the very same thing. It's, one of the things I've learned is you move up the trajectory and you compete for higher and higher positions, it really sometimes becomes exclusionary. In other words, they're like taking people out of the competition because of something negative that they found in their record.
Yeah, right.
So don't let there be anything negative in your record.
That's why nobody wants to be president of the United States. I feel like, That's why they tear them apart, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. So, Dean Leonard, did we miss anything today? Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I've enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have.
Yeah, no, me too.
I think you got a pretty good read of who I am and
fabulous. And I apologize for mispronouncing the law school. Shout out to Campbell University.
Thank you.
School of Law. It's it's a good place, run by our friend Rich Leonard. So thanks so much for coming on. You have I know we could probably talk for hours. You have a lot of wisdom there.
I'll send you. You got my email. Send me your address. I'll send you a book.
And I'd love to see some photos too from your trips. I mean,
I'll do that.
I think what you're doing is
we have fabulous photos of our trips in Africa.
Really interesting stuff. Thanks so much for coming on. Please stay there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
Thank you.